When I was indicted, it was about 20 years ago. I was lucky. I had a good lawyer. And not only was he a good lawyer, but he was an honest lawyer, which may sound like a contradiction in terms, but that's who he was. When I first met him, I asked him, do I have a chance of getting off? And there are lawyers out there, certainly, who will, prey upon the weakness of the moment. People are petrified. They'll go anywhere for anyone who they think could help them, and they take advantage of it. And my lawyer did not use that as an opportunity to give me bad advice that would just drain my bank account, or in my case, the bank account of my loved ones. And he did not tell me that for sure you could get off. Let's take this case to trial and we're going to win. My lawyer gave it to me straight. He said, I'd have no chance in hell if I went to trial, because as he recognized, I was stone cold guilty 20 times over what they indicted me with. And he told me the judge is going to throw the book at me if I take this court case to trial for wasting their time. He urged me to, number one, work with the prosecutor and give the prosecutor information about all the people I knew who were breaking other laws. And number two, give him the opportunity to go negotiate the best plea deal that he could get for me. I knew people who were breaking the laws and doing bad things, but as far as I was concerned, there was no way in hell that I was going to rat out other people just to save my own ass. I mean, I already felt very ashamed about my own conduct, and I knew I would never forgive myself for being a snitch. That was just something I wasn't going to do. But I did follow his advice and told him, okay, I'm going to plead guilty. And he very quickly was able to negotiate a reasonable deal, and he saved me hundreds of thousands of dollars in doing so. So I'm very appreciative of that. My case was federal, like Michael's. I later learned that 98% of all federal cases are pled out. 98%, that only 2% ever see a day in trial. So what Michael went through was truly a rarity. Now, why are so many cases pled out? Well, first of all, the feds, in this case, are known for taking years and years of putting together a case before they actually indict someone. So they could spend millions of dollars to indict someone who was charged with stealing, $100,000. It doesn't have to make business sense. They have an unlimited budget, and they really work until they have things wrapped up and have a very compelling case. But the bigger reason why so few people go to trial is because they know of what's happened to people like Michael. Michael's partner in the drug business, he agreed to cooperate, and he gave up his right to a jury trial. And in exchange, he ended up getting a 4-year sentence, of which he served 2, versus Michael's sentence of 45 years, 11 times as much. Now, I don't know the particulars of Michael's case, but I assume at the time he felt like he had some kind of defense and that he would have a chance if he went through the jury trial. Federal cases tend to be much bigger cases, and there's much more money involved generally, whereas state and county cases can be much smaller. They can be a couple of $1,000s involved. Very often in state and county cases, the defendants can't afford to hire a good, dedicated lawyer. So the court appoints them a public defender to handle the case. Public defenders, they may mean well, but they often have hundreds of cases they're handling at the same time, and they can't possibly provide the same level of services that my attorney provided me. So it's not surprising that regardless of what the particulars of the case are, and keep in mind that up until this point, the defendant has never actually even been found guilty of anything, it's all presumed. The public defender will push his or her client to accept the plea deal to clear his or her own calendar, just to keep the wheels of justice moving. And at the same time, there's a young assistant district attorney who's prosecuting the case, and he or she is also pushing for this outcome. And how they do it is they threaten the defendant, who again has never been found guilty of anything at this point, that if they insist on a jury trial, they are going to seek the harshest sentences allowed under law. And if that pressure is not enough to cop a plea, keep in mind that while this has been going on, assuming the defendant hasn't made bail, he or she has been sitting, rotting away in jail, sometimes for years, waiting for a trial date. And at a certain point, the pressure to play ball becomes just too much, and even an innocent person is going to succumb to the pressure and take a deal. Now, this is not a rarity. This is how things work in our criminal justice system, sad as it is. And we'd all like to think that at the top of the system, there's this wise judge who takes into account not just the so-called crime that occurred, this terrible mistake that someone may have made, but presumably they're also taking into account, the ties that that the defendant has in the community, that he or she is a devoted husband and father or mother, that this person is a person of religion, for example, but it doesn't work that way. In fact, the criminal justice system is managed by 28-year-old assistant district attorneys or assistant U.S. attorneys who have dreams of either running for mayor or landing a cushy job as a partner at some white shoe law firm, pulling down $1 million a year. He or she is someone who's trying to make his or her bones by showing off a one-sided conviction record that proves just how tough they are on crime. There's very little justice in a criminal system when expediency and raging ambition determine the future lives of defendants and their families and their communities. And there's very little justice in the presumption of guilty until proven innocent. And there's even less justice when those that suffer are overwhelmingly economically disadvantaged people of color. And that's the way it is. And that's my rant, and I'm sticking with it.